What's up, guys? Today we're going to break down Joe Burrow's game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was a big comeback, but was it impressive? A common theme with Joe Burrow in this game, and in most games Joe Burrow plays, is that he doesn't actually do anything necessarily wrong. It's just not very impressive. So it's not that Burrow is making a ton of bad plays, although he did have 3 really bad plays that I will show you later. It's more so that he has very few plays where he's doing something good or special. Almost all of his passes in this game and generally are rhythm, timing, short passes, taking what the defense gives him, and while that's very valuable and it's smart, it's not actively good, right? He's not carrying your team. Frankly, what he does is typically what we call game managing. It's just that he does it in a fun way with a great personality and an exciting young team. In this game, I give Joe Burrow a high F or a low D. There's a little bit of wiggle room, as you'll see, and I encourage you guys to give me feedback on the plays that I'm iffy about, because there's value in the wisdom of the crowd. Granted, I have a feeling that the audience of this video is going to skew slightly biased towards the Bengals. By no means in this video am I trying to say Joe Burrow is a terrible quarterback and he's always a terrible quarterback, or even that this performance was just egregiously bad. I simply think that Joe Burrow wasn't called upon a lot in this game, and when he was, he didn't really do good. I mean, he had a sack fumble that was his fault. He had an interceptable ball that got dropped. He had a pick that wasn't his fault at all. And he was only accurate at an average rate despite being asked to make a lot of really easy throws. He also took a sack that would have cost his team at least 30 yards of field position on 4th down, no less, which was called back for a holding that was, shall we say, questionable. Anyway, that's enough talking. Let's get to the film.
Let's get started, shall we? On the first play of the game, Burrow's going to drop back and just throw routine curl, take advantage of the soft coverage, and that's a lot of what Burrow's going to end up doing for the rest of the game. Again, same thing. It almost looks like the same play, except now it's an in instead of a curl. Just take advantage of soft coverage, throw the nice little check down, and you're going to hear me say these words a lot: pedestrian, routine, expected. It's not that these are bad throws. These are perfectly fine throws. It's just they're not impressive, right? So I made this analogy in the Deshaun Watson video that I did of Week 15, where he plays against the Ravens, because he peddles in a lot of routine throws in that game himself. Again, routine throw, but because there was pressure, a man rushing in his face, he gets a plus movement bonus. As I was saying, this is a bad throw. It should not be picked. Okay, first off, the routine throw problem. Routine throws are not bad. They're just not good. It's what you're expected to do. Nobody gives you a medal or a pat on the back for brushing your teeth every day, right? It's what people expect of you. If you don't do it, somebody might check you, right? Somebody might say, like, oh, you got bad breath, or like, dude, clean your act up. If you do it twice a day, nobody gives a shit, right? Even your dentist is going to be like, okay, you want a 10-cent lollipop once a year? No biggie. Now, so when I call the plays routine or pedestrian, I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying that they don't move me in either direction. They're completely expected, and I think that they should be hit most of the time. Now here, Keanu Neal jumps, tips the ball. It gets picked. This is not a pickable pass. It is a bad pass. Because he got the ball batted, it's bad. But if you get a ball batted, like he does right here, you should expect that it falls on the ground, right? If a defender touches the ball, like with his fingertips or really early in the trajectory, it should go to the ground most of the time. But sometimes it gets intercepted like that. And later in the game, Brady has a very similar play that gets picked off, and neither of them are pickable balls. They're just bad because they lack the pocket presence to understand that there was a defender in their throwing lane, and they didn't put enough arc on the ball or move the pocket enough to avoid that bat. Again, a screen pass. Burrow throws the screen pass as well as it can be thrown, but nobody sees that screen pass and goes, wow, great job, Burrow. Every yard gained on that play can be attributed to the wide receiver or the offensive line, and not at all the quarterback. It's routine. Now here, Burrow sits and hesitates, right? So the easiest throw is right here, this curl. Unfortunately, the cameraman thought we needed to see 8 yards of dead space rather than the routes developing, so I'm going to have to take you to the All-22 to figure out whose fault this sack was. So when we get to the All-22, you can see right here Nothing's really open. Shoyinka's already breaking on him, so he's already heated up, right? T. Higgins is going to cut in, and there's inside leverage. That's well covered. There's a safety over the top, so Hayden Hurst, regardless of if he's going out or going to cut in on an option, he's really got nothing. Tyler Boyd is covered really well and short of the sticks. If he catches this ball, it's still going to be a punt. His only real option is arguably Ja'Marr Chase right here because he's got over-the-top leverage. There is about 10 yards between this safety and Ja'Marr Chase. If Joe Burrow were to gun one in right here, he could avoid this defender in zone because he's flat-footed, right? So if Ja'Marr Chase is running this way into a slant, he has the advantage of speed, and this safety isn't going to be able to react fast enough. However, that would be an awesome throw. As you can see here, Ja'Marr Chase is open, but Burrow's already being affected. So if he would have had a little bit of anticipation a little earlier, like I mentioned, maybe he could have had this. But I understand him not having it. I'm going to call this a no-fault sack. The pressure was just too quick and nobody was open. So this is bad. This is one of the worst plays of Burrow's game. First of all, it's a quick route, right? None of these guys are going particularly deep, so you have to be looking right away. You see you have off coverage on the outside, throw the back shoulder, like right now. Additionally, you've got this slot right here. I don't know who that is. I think it might be Hayden Hurst because he's white and large. Yeah, it's got to be. Anyway, ball needs to be out. Turns out that these outside routes were short outs. Say out one more time. What a tongue twister. Anyway, these are outs or really soft button hooks. It doesn't really matter. They're sitting down and avoiding the zone. Because these cornerbacks on the outside are playing deep. It's cover 3. And these linebackers and inside defensive backs are preoccupied, right? They can't get there. So Ja'Marr Chase is wide open. T. Higgins is wide open. And I know what you're going to say. Well, there's a guy right in his face. Levante David's right there. Well, the problem is you don't throw the ball when the receiver turns around and looks for it and is wide open. You throw the ball when the wide receiver is starting to think about turning so that when he does eventually turn, ball's right there in his hands, right? So if Burrow threw with anticipation, the ball would be out like right, if not right now, definitely right now. This would be the perfect time to let go of it because if you let go of it right here, by the time Ja'Marr turns around, the ball hits him in the eyes. He catches the ball, he turns upfield, that's 10, 15-yard gain. Instead, Burrow eats a negative sack, and he fumbles. Now, he gets his own fumble back, but it doesn't change the fact that he fumbled, and we have to hold it against him because that's ball security. Once that ball hits the ground, 50-50 chance it goes to either team. Now here, Burrow does a much better job of getting through his reads. Personally, I would have thrown this out. Here's 10 yards, just take it. But I understand if he wants to check it down. A great quarterback hits Ja'Marr Chase right here for 10 yards. But there's nothing wrong with throwing the check down necessarily. I think it's a punt, personally. I really hate checking it down that early in the sequence. It shows me that Burrow is afraid of pressure or afraid of how he will handle pressure, but not the end of the world. Because he checks it down, 3rd and 16, really hard down to make. And really hard to see because it's kind of grainy. It's a bad throw because it's very well covered. But, once again, I want to go to the replay and see if all 22 has anything a little clearer for us so that we can really see how that ball landed. I'm really glad that I went to the all 22 because the tight copy shows us that this ball was a little bit low and a little bit inside. So if this ball's a little higher and a little bit further outside, and I know they're already jumping, but if this ball is instead of a foot over Higgins' right shoulder, and it's instead a foot or even a foot and a half over his left shoulder, instead of reaching over this defensive back, he can reach over here where there's nobody in the way. So that's just bad ball placement. And sure, it's tough on 3rd and 16 to throw with good ball placement, especially when you're a guy like Joe Burrow who doesn't really have the strongest arm. If you make a poor throw because you just don't have the arm to get it out there, it's a bad throw. Bengals get a short field after the Buccaneers miss a field goal. The Buccaneers miss a field goal, and the Bengals get a short field because of it. They come out running the ball, and I'm not going to show you all that, but on 3rd and 3, they're going to throw it down the right side to Ja'Marr Chase right here. And while typically just fuck it, Ja'Marr Chase is on the field and in this direction works, it doesn't here. Why? Well, it's not because Ja'Marr Chase did anything wrong. It's more so just that it was good coverage, and Burrow should have known. The issue is that he's got a clean pocket, and he's already... See, remember when I talked about anticipation? You throw before the receiver looks. Ja'Marr Chase is 2 steps into his route, right? I can't even tell if this is a curl or a streak yet, but Burrow is throwing it. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that throw, other than the fact that it's very well covered, and he kind of prayed. He threw it up for a prayer. If you want to grade that as a pedestrian throw because it was exactly what you would expect from an average quarterback, I wouldn't hate that. Personally, I'm going to grade it as bad because I think that it was a bad decision. He had plenty of time to make a better decision, and he didn't let the route develop enough to tell if Ja'Marr Chase was going to get over the top on press coverage. If you're going to throw a back shoulder against press coverage, you have to know that your receiver will have underneath leverage. And Burrow didn't there. So it's splitting hairs. It's a good bad throw or a bad pedestrian throw, if that makes sense. So what is probably going to be the last drive of the first half, the Bengals are going to come out running an RPO. This is one of my favorite phenomenon in grading football plays. RPOs always look dope because they're just so seamless and so quick, but I want you to look at how open Ja'Marr Chase is. There's nobody within 5 yards of him. It's incredibly open. So the ball comes out on time, the ball is accurate, but it's a pedestrian throw. There's nobody covering him, and that's how RPOs work. That's how guys like Jimmy G and even Tua get so many yards on manufactured plays. There's nobody really guarding anybody on an RPO like that. RPOs, quick slants, all the same thing, even quick ins. Here, this is a good throw. But, again, wide open, and prevent defense wants him to take that. If you want to go solid, I don't blame you, but I believe it's pedestrian. That is a solid throw. It's a good throw, in coverage, no doubt about it. Whereas that's a little bit more of a pedestrian one. I want to go back and just highlight something real quick. So all these throws are for about 10 yards. It's worth noting that against prevent defenses, most defenses will absolutely allow you 10 yards as long as you stay inbounds. So, no timeouts. See how wide open he is? About 10 yards downfield? Wide open. That's pretty easy. Now compare it to this play, similar depth of target, much tighter coverage. Now, he's open, but Carlton Davis is actually on him playing man trying to take away that throw. And then finally, we come back to another easy throw. The defensive back is in the area ready to make a tackle, but he wants you to catch that ball so that he can hit you and knock you down inbounds, wasting time. Here, I don't think I have to convince anybody that that's an expectation throw. And they'll spike it, which absolutely does not factor into Joe Burrow's grades. It is not a pass. So they get a field goal. Good way to end the first half after a pretty rough first half. As you can see, I mean, like 10 of 14 completions. One of them was solid, maybe 2, depending on how you want to cut the hairs. Also, he had a pick. Totally wasn't his fault. Shouldn't have been a pick. So the grades have been very misleading. Additionally, the sacks, like one of them was totally his fault. One of them was absolutely not his fault. This is why we go through the time and hassle of grading every play rather than just looking at a box score because it doesn't really capture what's happening. So the Bengals are going to start the second half at the 20-yard line, the plus 20-yard line, because the Buccaneers faked a punt in their own territory and fucked up completely. Now, I want you to make note of that, because while the Bengals had a dominant comeback, Joe Burrow did nothing to earn this field position. Nobody on the Bengals offense did. It was mostly just a Buccaneers gaffe. That being said, this is a plus run. This is a positive run. He got 10 yards. It's the same as if he would have made a solid throw. It's very helpful. First and goal run. Here we go. Second and goal. Going to be a little late and a little outside. I see what they're trying to do. They're trying to motion, get him outside because he's got a running head start to get to the sideline. It doesn't really work, so you zig it back on an option. If the ball's thrown a little earlier, like if the ball's thrown right before he stops, you have a shot at completing it, but it's a little late, it's a little outside, it's well covered. It's a bad pass, but it's not the worst bad pass. It's not egregious, he's just a tick late on his timing, and with a fourth or fifth string wide receiver, that shit happens. Here, he's real late. First of all, you got Tyler Boyd right here with upfield leverage. Put the ball right here, loft it, he catches it and walks in. Worth noting that over the top you also had, I think that's T. Higgins on a deep in. Perfectly open. Here, you've got a defensive back right here on the ball. Much better chance of the defensive back catching that ball than the wide receiver. We'll call it bad. It's borderline pickable. And you see exactly why. So despite getting gifted a 20-yard field, the Bengals come away with a field goal and 2 or 3 lackluster Burrow throws. Buccaneers were feeling really generous, and because the Bengals didn't really get much out of their short field last time, they did it again with a Tom Brady pick. So from the 30-yard line this time, Burrow opens up with a routine throw, short curl, good timing, good anticipation, on target, very easy to do though. Low degree of difficulty. Again, there's nothing wrong with accomplishing something perfectly with a low degree of difficulty. It's just not impressive. I'm not going to give you bonus points for it. I'm just not impressed. Now here, this throw is close. This throw could be great, or it could be bad. And we're gonna have to see the replay in order to really, god damn it, condensed feed, show me the replay. I'm gonna cut to the replay so that I can show you where that ball was placed and we can figure out just how good it was or wasn't. So here I went to the original broadcast for the replay. You get a really good look right here at this. Ball's right on the hands. That's a great throw. It's a great throw. Now, it would have been better if it was over the top and arcing so that Ja'Marr Chase has a better chance at catching it, but it's a great throw. That being said, on 4th down, Joe Burrow is going to have a play that doesn't show up in the stat sheet, but it might be one of the worst I've ever seen. Right here, 4th and 3, you've got this man going to break out right here. He's going to be open. You've also got this man curling against a defensive end. You should be looking that way. Ja'Marr Chase is covered. This guy on the outside is covered, and this guy on the outside is long developing, not even worth your consideration yet. If the ball had come out a little earlier, you can get it right there. But he's focused on Chase. He is not looking off of Chase. Still focused on Chase. And again, this guy is still wide open. I think that's Hayden Hurst, but I'm going to keep saying that every time it's a white guy. It can't be, because that's Hayden Hurst. Egads. Anyway, I know it's 4th down and you got to make something happen, but don't run 30 yards into your own backfield. Aside from the fact that once you're 30 yards deep in the backfield, you really don't have the arm to make any of the throws on this particular play, you're giving them the ball at the 50-yard line. I would rather you throw the ball away and give them the ball at the 20. Now, there will be a flag for holding. It's kind of bullshit, but take that away. The holding didn't affect the play. I showed you what Burrow was looking at when he bailed. He bailed because he didn't see Ja'Marr Chase open, frankly. And as soon as he saw that Ja'Marr Chase wasn't open, he took off backwards. Now, why wasn't Ja'Marr Chase opened? That's legal. That's within 5 yards. That contact is totally fine. It's legitimate. Here, it's a little hold. But that's after Burrow has already broken the pocket. Jamar Chase turns around like that once Burrow starts to scramble. So that is a blown call. You're allowed to contact a wide receiver once the quarterback breaks the pocket. Something not a lot of people know about, but honestly, a good outside corner, once a quarterback breaks the pocket, should just push the wide receiver out of bounds. It's totally legal, and more teams should do it. So I graded that as a negative sack on Burrow, with a couple of bonus point modifiers to bring it down a little bit to reflect just how many yards he lost and the fact that it would have been a turnover on downs. I gave him a couple plus pocket movements as well because he did a really good job of maneuvering, but it was overall a very negative play. And I think we'd all agree that had that holding flag not happened, this game might actually change, right? The Buccaneers are already almost in field goal range, and 20-6 after that play feels a lot different than 17-12 in a couple minutes. Here's a routine throw. Burrow's staying on schedule, but he's not doing anything super impressive. So far, his best throw of the game is that downfield throw to Jamar Chase that was incomplete. Here, again, pedestrian throw, tackle, questionable face mask call. The Bengals have a habit, like once a game, it seems, that they will just get their hands held right to the end zone by refs. I don't think that it's a conspiracy. I think it's just happening. I think it's just the Bengals are a tough team to play, and when you're tough, you make your own luck. Here, solid throw. Wide the fuck open, but it's deep enough, and it's a touchdown, so I'll give him a break. It's a solid throw. Fine. I almost forgot that the Bengals go for 2 here, and you have to grade that because it's a 2-point play. In the end, it turns out they didn't need to do this because they scored quite a few more points. But if you're going to do it, that's not how you do it. That's a bad throw. You got to be earlier. You got to put a little less arc on it. And if you're going to be that late, you got to put it toward. You got to lead the receiver. It was just. It was primarily Burrow just being late on his read. Timing is a little off. So Burrow's going to lead this great comeback and all, but notice again 3 straight drives starting in the red zone. I mean, he's playing college overtime football right now, and he's got 9 points to show for it. Here, this is a routine throw. Levante David has a shot at it, but once again, why the fuck is a linebacker on Jamar Chase, of all people? That's crazy. It's really bad coaching by the Buccaneers. This game is very clearly a failure of the Buccaneers rather than a triumph by the Bengals. Here, this is so bad it's almost pickable. I won't call it pickable because it's a design play. Like, he's not thinking during this play. He's just doing what he's supposed to do. It's routine. But, I mean, that really could have gone the other way for 6. Again, I'll grade it as bad. Certainly not pickable because it's not like he analyzed the field and made a decision to make that pitch. It was a predetermined play like a handoff. And here, this is another throw that is on the higher end of pedestrian, the lower end is solid. Again, I think it's pedestrian. It's a 5-yard pass, and it's a curl, and the defender fell down. I think that's pretty easy. If you want to call it solid, I understand, but I think that that's a little bit sensationalist. I think you're being swayed by the fact that it worked. Again, another pass, pedestrian. It's a one-step slant. It's literally impossible to defend. Sure, it's accurate, but it's super easy. That said, you'll note Joe Burrow evades the rush while throwing it. Anthony Nelson's right in his face. So I'll give him a plus move for that. Good job. It's a positive play, but just barely. It's not like a great throw. It's not analyzing the field very well. It's his first read. It's wide open. It's a gimme play. Not that impressive. I'm sorry. You're not going to believe me, but the Buccaneers are sick and tired. They are done with giving the Bengals the ball in the red zone. So they gave it to him at their own 40 on another fumble. And here, this is just a pickable. Come on, 9 times out of 10, this is going the other way. You know that's a pick. So earlier, Burrow had a pick that he didn't deserve. It was not his fault. Here, he's got a pick that he doesn't get punished for. I guess there's justice in this world. Here, this is a plus pocket movement. Does a really good job of dealing with a muddy pocket and getting the ball out to his running back. Routine throw, obviously, but good on you for making the effort. 3rd and 8, got to go a little deeper here. And that's a solid throw to Jamar Chase. It's tight coverage. It's good anticipation. It's knowing that Jamar Chase is going to make a play on the ball. Good job. This is pedestrian, and it turns into a drop. And that's, again, not Joe Burrow's fault at all. T. Higgins, of all people, should catch that. T. Higgins is one of the best catchers of the football in the NFL. He's a lot like A.J. Green was, actually. And I know that's a little bit helmet scouting, but they're super long dudes who are awesome at the contested catch and have great hands. Here, this is another solid play. Burrow scrambles up, so a plus pocket movement, and a solid throw. Now, dude was wide the fuck open, like wide open, but it was creative, so I'll give him props. And now we're starting to get into juice the clock territory. Again, pedestrian throw, it's a quick hitter, and Jamar Chase turns the quick hitter into a touchdown. It's clear the Buccaneers had a miscommunication or weren't ready for the play, but like, look at it's a two-step curl. That's a timing route, it's his first read, nothing to it, very simple. Burrow's head does not move the entire time. That's not some stroke of genius, it's not some great chemistry, it's just a well-executed, well-drawn-up play against a lackluster defense. The Bucs are making improvements, now they turn the ball over at midfield. And the Bengals are going to get a routine pass. Again, at this point, there's 11 minutes left. You're up by 10. Just make that clock move. Just continue completing passes and running the ball, and you'll be fine. Instead, throws behind Jamar Chase. Not great. Bad throw. Happens to all of us. 3rd and 5. Burrow wants it all. And it's just not accurate. First of all, you know you've got over-the-top coverage, so you really should be trying to veer Jamar Chase in. Instead, puts it a little too high and outside. Even Jamar Chase can't get it. It's a bad ball. It doesn't matter because the Bucs can't do anything with it. Now we're going to see a lot of running. 2nd and 10, Burrow steps up in the pocket and makes an extremely routine throw. Higgins gives all the yards back. He's not having his best day. And a routine screen. Again, that's the right thing to do. That's what the play was called for, obviously, and it's the right kind of play to run because you're just trying to make the clock turn. Your enemy is now time existing, not the Buccaneers. You're not trying to score, you're not trying to beat them, you're trying to wait. Patience is a virtue I don't necessarily have, but the Bengals did here, and it's very good that they did. Again, it's a routine throw. These are all short, simple routes that are very easy to complete. The Buccaneers want you to complete short routes. They have a bend but don't break defense. Their idea is we will get takeaways and sacks if we make you run enough plays. And again, that's on time. The theme of Joe Burrow is that he doesn't make a ton of mistakes and he doesn't do a ton of things great. He's just kind of adequate and decent at doing the easy things all the time. In my day, we called that a game manager, and there's nothing wrong with being a game manager. But if you want to write home about some elite performance, some great quarterback, I don't think this is at least the performance, if not the quarterback, to do so about. Honestly, this is a debacle from the Buccaneers. Between the 5 straight short fields that they handed the Bengals, literally, and all the penalties on 3rd and 4th down, this is... Like, honestly, the fact that Todd Bowles still has a job shows that the Buccaneers are either merciful or asleep at the wheel. And here is a routine pass to not Hayden Hurst, but the guy I've been confusing for Hayden Hurst all day, somebody named M. Wilcox. He's got great hair. Routine throw, not all touchdown passes are created equal. So on the day, Burrow's got 4 touchdown passes, and 3 of them were pretty goddamn routine. So the Buccaneers will try an onside kick with 50 seconds left, down by 2 possessions, because God knows why, and the Bengals will kneel it out. That's all the film we got, so it's time to get to the charts.
Now that we watched the film, I feel pretty comfortable saying that this was not a good performance from Joe Burrow. Remember, he had a fumble, and he had a ball that should have been picked but wasn't. The interception is going to show up in the stat sheet because he had an interception that totally wasn't his fault. And he wasn't that inaccurate, right? He was accurate on 72% of his passes in this game, which is about league average. He wasn't asked to do a ton, and a lot of that's because he was handed so many short fields that the Bengals never really needed any transcendent play from their quarterback. But in a game where you throw the ball almost 30 times and you only have 4 positive throws and 1 positive run, that's just not enough help for your team to overcome an interception and a fumble. If, hypothetically, the Buccaneers didn't literally turn the ball over on 5 straight possessions in their own side of the field, I don't think the Bengals win this game. I think that the Bengals won this game largely because the Buccaneers fucked up. Additionally, I think that Joe Burrow got extremely lucky not to be punished for that terrible sack he took on 4th down that should have given the Bucs the ball at midfield if not for a questionable penalty call. Again, if you look here, I charted 26 of Joe Burrow's passes and 14 of them were pedestrian. They were the routine kind that are real simple and not a lot to. I only had the one great pass, which was the one downfield to Jamar Chase that glanced off of his hand, incomplete on 3rd and I want to say 8. The play before, I guess it was 3rd and 3. It was the play before the egregious sack that was called back. He had 3 solid throws. He had a few throws that were close to solid, but even if you want to make every throw that was close to being solid, just upgrade all of them, he still comes out at a D performance. Again, the inaccuracy wasn't terrible, but it wasn't good enough considering the low degree of difficulty that they asked him to perform. They mostly ran extremely short routes against soft coverage, and while that's smart and there's nothing wrong with taking what you're given, if that's the conservative style of play that you're going to employ, you have to be more efficient while doing so. You have to be better. Now, he only had 2 sacks in the game. I have 3 sacks on the chart. That's because of the 4th down sack that was called back for holding. I don't believe the holding was material to the play. I think that was just Joe Burrow taking a bad sack and getting bailed out. Remember, that one and one prior were his fault, but by watching the All-22, we determined that the first sack really wasn't Joe Burrow's fault. While it looked like he had enough time in the pocket, nobody was open and there was just nothing to do. He had that one nice run to set up their first field goal, or their first points of the second half route. And he really wasn't asked to manipulate the pocket that much because he wasn't under that much pressure. Again, that fumble could have been way more costly. It's really easy to think of Joe Burrow as having had a pretty clean game because of the way things ended on such a high note for the Bengals as a team. But let's say in the first half, Joe Burrow fumbles the ball at his 10 and he's not the one who picks it up. If it's not already a touchdown, it's a very short field for an offense that was rolling in the first half in Tampa, and instead of being a 17-3 game, it's a 24-3 game. Things feel a little different. I think the story of the game is turnovers. The Bengals got a little lucky on that one fumble, and the Bengals got a lot lucky on Tom Brady and Leonard Fournette having a botched exchange, Tom Brady having a sack fumble, Tom Brady having 2 picks. All basically right up against each other in the red zone. Again, I don't think that the Bengals played poorly. I just think that they were handed this game and Joe Burrow didn't do very much to help. I think that the highest you can be on this game, given what we just saw on tape, I think there's a little wiggle room. I think you could call this about a D performance, but personally, I believe that it's worth an F. He only was accurate on, so he was accurate on 72% of his passes. That's average. But when you consider the ease of what they were asking him to do, it should have been higher. He only produced a positive play on 17% of plays, and while that's not terrible, it's significantly below average, and it's below his average on the season. He has a pretty low positive play rate, and his negative plays were 31%. That's above average. Again, when your degree of difficulty is this low, it has to be tighter than that. Speaking of that point, almost 54% of their plays were pedestrian or cheap plays. These are neutral runs. These are routine throws. It's a really easy game, and he didn't really do very well inside of it. An F might be harsh. I get that, but a D is optimistic. There's no way he had a C, a B, or definitely not an A. It was not a good game for Burrow, and maybe he wasn't put in positions where he needed to thrive, but we can only grade what he put on film. He did a poor job. All right, if you disagree with any of my grades, let me know. There were a few that were questionable, and I could go back and forth on. If you want to advocate for Joe Burrow's behalf for some of those throws that were on the borderline of pedestrian and solid, go ahead. Let's workshop this. I'm not opposed to bumping this grade up. I've already bumped it up a little bit because having seen the All-22, I gave him back the great throw to Jamar Chase that I thought was bad at first. Turns out it was great. And I gave him back one of the sacks that I thought was his fault, and it wasn't. What do you guys think? Let me know. But until next time, hasta.